Hi everyone and welcome to the Dibbly-Dobbly Podcast. Before we get started, make sure you like, share, comment, subscribe and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page as well. On today's episode of the podcast, we talk about Australia's tour of South Africa being postponed, Australia's World Test Championship hopes, Australia's T20 tour to New Zealand, and Justin Langer. Now, as many of you would know, that Australia's tour to South Africa is postponed or cancelled due to obvious reasons, which we're not going to go into. I think everybody knows what we're talking about. And I think everybody's sick and tired of talking about it as well. But obviously, it's been cancelled or postponed, as I said before. Both of the cricket boards, Cricket South Africa and Cricket Australia, couldn't agree on certain issues. So therefore, Cricket Australia made a decision to call off the tour. Now, a lot of people are torn about this decision, whether or not that it should have gone ahead or should have been cancelled. You can have those opinions on that, but I think both cricket boards tried everything. I think they had major discussions. Cricket Australia talked about hosting the series in Australia. Cricket South Africa said, no, that's not going to be viable for us. They also said, what about a neutral venue, like in the UAE or something? Again, that was knocked back. So they tried different things to agree to, but it didn't quite work out. I can sort of understand the decision. Obviously, I'm disappointed a little bit because for Australia, it now puts their World Test Championship hopes of playing in the final at Lords against New Zealand in doubt. They have to rely on other results to still go through to the final. They can go through, but it's a slim chance. They have to have results go their way in the India and England series, which is happening at the moment. If you ask the players if they wanted to go to South Africa and play, they would have said yes. But this is not a player's decision. This has been made by people higher up in Cricket Australia on the board, not by the players. So, I think cricket needs to continue in these tough times. We need to try and do everything we can to keep cricket going. I think the cricket boards from both sides should have done more, should have been open to different ideas like hosting the series here in Australia or hosting the series in the UAE in a neutral venue or something, which was discussed, but it was knocked back. They could have done more, but as I said, a decision's been made and, there's nothing we can do now. The decision's already been made. So I can understand why Cricket Australia made the decision. Obviously, I think people's perspective in this tough time have changed. Obviously, health, family comes first, and that's what prompted Cricket Australia to make the decision. And, at the end of the day, we've got to think about the bigger picture, think about it differently. Your health, your family comes first, and the game of cricket's just a game of cricket. There will be always other games of cricket to play. So, at the end of the day, they've made the decision. They've said, nah, we're not going to go ahead because the health and safety of our players come first, which is understandable. And we just got to think about it that way, I think. Yes, as cricket fans and supporters, you like to see both teams play. But at the end of the day, you got to remember the bigger picture. And I think, it's just going to be like that. It's just going to be another year like last year again, where many things are going to be called off or cancelled or postponed. And we just have to accept that. It's tough on the players. It would have been good for Australia to bounce back after the India series. And let's have a look at the squad that they selected for the tour. Payne, Abbott, Carey, Cummins, Green, Harris, Hazelwood, Head, Enriques, Labuschagne, Lyon, Nessa, Pattinson, Pekoski, Smith, Stark, Steketty, Swepson, and Warner. This was seen as an opportunity for Australia today to get points in the World Test Championship, and also bounce back from a tough home summer in a tough series against India. And prove to people that they can bounce back and win in South Africa. And Australia have a very good record in South Africa in recent years. Obviously, the last tour, South Africa managed to win against them in 2018, but up until that point, Australia had a pretty strong record in South Africa because both countries are similar in terms of bounce and conditions and all that. So that's why Australia have a good record in South Africa. But it was an opportunity for them to bounce back and for Tim Payne to bounce back as a captain. And no doubt it wasn't a great series from him as captain in this series against India that's just gone. But at the end of the day, it was taken out of the players' hands, and the decision was made by people further up than the players. So, yeah, it's a hard situation to be in, but I think the players understand what Cricket Australia have done in terms of the decision and respect it. But that's the way things go, I suppose, in this new world that we're living in. I think Australia's next Test series is until later on this year in the Ashes, which is here in Australia for the 2021-22 summer. So that's a long time to wait in between Test matches. But yeah, at the end of the day, you just got to accept the decision. There's nothing you can do. It's out of our control as fans or players. You just got to accept it and try and be ready for the next series that comes your way. So, yeah, disappointing, but as I said before, there'll be another games of cricket on for both these teams. At the end of the day, we're just going to think about the bigger picture in life and in this current situation that we're living in. Now, with the South Africa and Australia Test Series being postponed, Australia's hopes of making it to the World Test Championship final at Lords are all but over. We know that New Zealand are going to be playing that final at Lords in June, but Australia are still a chance of making it to the final. It's a slim chance, but they can still make it. They need results in the India and England series to go their way. They need India to win the series 1-0. They need England to win the series 1-0, 2-0 or 2-1. Or if the series is a drawn series, 0-0, 1-1 or 2-2, they go through to the final. But it's a very slim chance. If those results don't go their way, then either India or England go through to the final and play New Zealand in the final at Lords. One tour that is going to go ahead for Australia is their T20 tour of New Zealand, which is starting later on this month. Let's have a look at the fixture of those 5 T20 internationals. The first one at the Hagley Oval on the 22nd of February. The second one at the University Oval on the 25th of February. The third one at Wellington Regional Stadium on the 3rd of March. The fourth one at Eden Park on the 5th of March. And the last one at the Bay Oval on the 7th of March. So that's the fixture for the series. So a busy schedule ahead for both teams. Let's have a look at Australia's T20 squad for that series. Finch, Ashton Agar, Behrendorff, Mitchell Marsh, Maxwell, McDermott, Meredith, Philippi, Kane Richardson, Jai Richardson, Sams, Sanger, Short, Storness, Turner, Ty, Wade and Sampa. So a pretty good squad there for Australia. Now, with the South Africa tour being postponed, a lot of people were talking about, is the squad going to be changed? And it's not. going to be changed. I think the selectors have made it clear that we're not going to change the squad, so it's going to remain the same. So I think that's a good thing. A lot of people say, why? The tour's not going ahead of South Africa. Why not have the test players play in the T20 side? Because we need them, because, without them, we're an undermanned squad. Well, people can think at it that way, but the way I think about it is, I think it's a great opportunity for our test players to go back to the Sheffield Shield cricket and play for their states in the Sheffield Shield. I think we should prioritise Sheffield Shield cricket for the test players and let the T20 specialists, who are not renowned in first-class cricket, to go over to New Zealand, like it is with this squad, to see what they're made of at international level. Give them an opportunity. I say that because if you had the test players in the T20 squad, for example, players like McDermott, Meredith, Philippi, Sanger, Sams, wouldn't get an opportunity in playing in the side. But without the test players, they will get an opportunity to play in the team against New Zealand to see how they do in international cricket. Give them a go. With the test players, it will be great for them to go back to play Sheffield Shield cricket, because it's very rarely these days, with the international schedule over the years, that most international players don't even play domestic cricket for their home states or counties in the world. So we've got a rare opportunity where the test players from Australia are playing in the Sheffield Shield. Now, that will give the players coming up through the system in Australia, who play for their states, to play against the top-level test players in the world. For example, a young batsman coming up through the system, they're going to have a chance to face Mitchell Starc, Pat Cummins, Josh Hazlewood, and Nathan Lyon. And that will be great for their development going forward. And it's the same with a bowler, bowling to the likes of David Warner, Steve Smith, Marnus Labuschagne, testing themselves out against the best batsmen in the world. It will be great for their development. So I can see why the selectors have chosen to stick with the same T20 squad because of that reason. And it should be that way, really. Let's be honest, these T20 internationals in New Zealand are meaningless. They don't count towards anything. They don't count towards qualification for the T20 World Cup later on this year. For example, like the ODI Super League does for the 2023 ODI Cup, World Cup, which is in India. So it doesn't count towards any qualification for World Cups or anything like that. You're going to play some games, and really it's preparation for the T20 World Cup later on this year in India, which is in around about October, November, I think. So these games don't really count towards anything, really. So it doesn't really matter if Australia win or lose the series. At the end of it, the only thing you'll get is a few points for the ICC T20 international rankings. That's about it. Nothing else. So I think that's the thing with T20 internationals, is that we play them, but they're meaningless. They don't count towards anything. They don't qualify you for the World Cup or anything like that. So really, there's nothing behind it that is significant enough. If it was significant, and it was for qualification for the T20 World Cup, then probably the T20 squad would be changed. But now it's not nothing significant, I should say, towards this series in terms of qualification for the World Cup. Then, what's the point of changing the squad anyway? It doesn't matter if Australia wins or loses the series. Obviously, they'll like to win the series. But if New Zealand win the series, for example, it doesn't really equate to anything. Because as I said before, you only get a handful of ICC ranking points for the T20 rankings, and that's about it. Nothing else. So what it is going to do is give both teams preparation for the T20 World Cup later on this year. For Australia, it's about trying these players out, see how they go at the international arena, like a Sanger, like a Philippi and a Meredith, to see how they at international level. They're the only 3 players not to play international cricket in that T20 side. The rest have. So it's about giving them an opportunity to push their case for selection later on for that T20 World Cup to be a part of Australia's squad. Now, I think Australia's got a good idea about their squad already, but they want to try some players out and see how they go in this series. And a lot of these players have been doing well in the Big Bash. You know, they've had really good Big Bashes over the last few seasons. So why not give them an opportunity to play in this series against New Zealand? Now, New Zealand are a pretty good side themselves. They haven't named their squad yet, so we'll wait and see who they name in their squad. So we'll wait until then. But going back on Australia, it's an opportunity for Australia to hopefully win a World Cup, because they haven't won a T20 World Cup ever. So this is a great opportunity for Australia to finally break through and win a T20 World Cup. And hopefully, you know, if they don't make it through to the World Test Championship, at least they've got something that they've won in terms of a T20 World Cup. So I back the selection... I back the selector's decision not to change the squad. As I said before, we got to prioritise first-class cricket, and by having those test players in their state sides in Sheffield Shield cricket will only make Sheffield Shield cricket better in Australia. Because if you have the international players in the Sheffield Shield, it makes it for better cricket. And developing young players as well to hopefully play a test match for Australia in the future. Excuse me. Let the T20 specialists go over to New Zealand and do what they do best. And let the test players do what they do best, and that's playing the longer form of the game. So at the end of the day, I think they made the right decision in not changing the squad. Other people will have different opinions about that, but that's just my opinion. I think we should really prioritise first-class cricket and Sheffield Shield cricket. So that's my view on it. As I said before, many people have different opinions about this, but let's be honest, at the end of the day, these T20s don't equal to anything. They don't count towards anything. So if Australia lose the series, it's no big deal. It's not going to count towards anything. But they would like to win the series, as I said before. But at the end of the day, it's just about preparation for the T20 World Cup and trying to break through for that first T20 World Cup, which has eluded Australia over the years. And hopefully, this year, they've got a good chance of winning it. But it's going to be tough being in India in those types of conditions. Obviously, the last T20 World Cup that was in India in 2016, Australia didn't do so well in terms of playing against the spinners in those conditions, which has been a real weakness for Australia in recent years. So it's going to be a challenge, no doubt about that. But I think Australia, like many other teams, have got a good chance in winning that T20 World Cup. Let's talk about Justin Langer. Now, he's been in the press and the media of late, copping all sorts of pressure from the media about the team's performance and players not being happy with his coaching methods and styles, to toasted sandwiches being brought onto the field, all heaps of stuff happening. I just laughed when I heard that. Believe what you want. I tend not to read too much into all that stuff, but if it is true about players not being happy about Justin Langer, and they've got some concerns about it, then we've got some questions to answer if that's true. You know, we all know Justin Langer's a tough cricketer. He's a hard cricketer when he played. He's a hard coach. He's he wants the best out of his players. And he wants Australia to do well. You know, he's a very passionate player when he played, and now as a coach, he is a passionate coach as well. No doubt he's copping the criticism because Australia lost the series against India. At the end of the day, people have just got to realise that India played well and Australia didn't. You know, you can blame the coach, you can blame the captain, you can blame everyone if you like. At the end of the day, they're people, they're trying their best. It's not easy, but you just got to say India played well. And, and Justin Langer, if he needs to improve his style of being a coach and his direction that he wants the team to go into, his philosophy of where he wants the team to end up. I think he said that he wants Australia to be number one in Test cricket and number one in ODI cricket, number one in T20 internationals, number one in all three formats. We're at the moment, Australia are not going to do that at the moment. They're a long way off from doing that. But that's his vision, that's his goal and direction for this team. And, he's done a tremendous job since he's come in. After what happened in South Africa with Tim Payne to lead the side from that, the World Cup, Australia made the semi-final, lost against England, but that was a great result. Retaining the Ashes in England was a great triumph. To be the first Australian side to do that since Steve Waugh last did it in 2001. That was a great achievement by this current group. And, they had a tough series against India this summer, and everyone expected Australia to win. And obviously a lot of pressure on Tim Payne, the captain, and a lot of pressure on Justin Langer as the coach. Now, Justin Langer has said, the pressure's not getting to me. He said, the job is stressful, but, you just have to try and work around that. But I think he needs to take some of the load off him. I think he's doing too much. That's why he's, in this sort of position now, with everyone criticising him, the team not playing well, his focus is somewhere else maybe. I think Cricket Australia need to take the load off him. And I think we're going to come to a point in world cricket, not only Australia, but in world cricket, that we are going to have different coaches for different formats. I think the days are gone where you have one coach for three formats. It's just too much. It's just too much on the one individual. If you break it up, then the workload is spread and it becomes a lot easier. So I think for Australia, for Cricket Australia, is for them to have Justin Langer just focus on the test side, because that's what he's good at, obviously. Just focus on the test side, getting that right, and get someone else to focus on the ODI and T20 setup. Because if you have two different coaches, one for tests and then one coach for ODIs and T20s, it will lighten the load. Whereas now, he's just under pressure, and he will be going with the T20 side to New Zealand. Whereas someone else could have done that for him. I think there's been a lot of discussion about having different coaches for different formats. Let's be honest, the game of cricket is sort of heading towards that direction, especially in the new world we live in now, whereas players and coaches will get burnt out, fatigued, mentally and physically. You need someone else to lighten the load. And I think with Justin Langer at the moment, he needs to have the load lighten. Just focus on the test side, not focus on the ODIs and T20s. Let someone else do that and take over that side of Australian cricket. Whereas he can just focus on the test side, getting the test side back up the rankings, being the best side in the world, and hopefully winning a lot of series and games for Australia. And let someone else, as I said before, focus on the ODIs and T20s. I think if they do that, then it will be a weight lifted off his shoulders. But at the moment, I think the pressure is just starting to get to him a little bit. He'll say it differently. That it's not. But I think just watching what happened in this India series, and now with the backlash in the media and the press, and Tim Payne copping it, now Justin Langer copping it, I think the pressure is just starting to get to him a little bit. and the stresses of the job. It's not easy being an Australian coach. You know, you're going to get criticised. You're going to get criticised by the press, commentators, pundits, the media, fans, experts that know everything, but they don't. You know, you can only put yourself in his shoes. It will be a hard job to manage the team. You know, and the criticism and the backlash from this Indian series that they lost, it's just tough. So I think the pressure is just starting to go on his shoulders. And I think Cricket Australia need to make a move into having different formats. Having different coaches for different formats. I think we're going to come to that time now where all cricket sides will have that. Because let's be honest, the days of 3-format players may be over. You may have specialist players for ODIs and T20s, and then you have specialist test players. A prime example of that is Pujara. He plays test cricket and first-class cricket. He doesn't play any of the limited over stuff. So I think we're going to see that in the future, and workloads of players and that in the years to come. But what I'll finally say on Justin Langer is that he was the right man for the job at the time. And over the years, when you do this job as Australian coach, you're gonna get fatigued. You're gonna get burnt out mentally and physically because it's not an easy job. It's a hard job being a coach of any cricket side, let alone Australia. So I think for him, he needs someone to take over from the ODIs and T20s. I think, you know, let someone else do that. He can just focus on the test side and get the team back up to the standard that all Australian fans and supporters expect of the team. And I think if they do that, then he'll be able to. But at the moment, I think, as I said before, the pressure's just started to come now. But, you know, at the end of the day, he's human. He's not perfect, Justin Langer. No one's going to like him. You don't be coach of Australia to be liked. You know, people are not going to like Australia or like them. It's not a popularity contest. You know, you got to go out there, do your job, and that's play cricket and try win games for Australia, not to be liked. So everyone will not like Justin Langer as coach. They think someone else should be coach, not him. But, you know, he'll learn from this and he'll try and get better as a coach and as a person, as he said, for the future. And it will be a big learning curve for him as a coach. But, you know, that's his style of coaching, I should say. That's how he coaches. You know, that sort of hard attitude, hard line. You know, we got to play aggressively, that sort of style of cricket. That's how he is. And you can't change that. And that's how he wants the team to play. And that's his direction and goal for the team, to be a team that's going to win in all conditions, to be number one in the world, you know, to win games of cricket for Australia. That's how he wants the team to be. And, you know, not everyone sees that vision. Everyone sees it differently. But for him, you know, it's just about doing the best he can and hopefully get Australian cricket back up to the top again, as it once was back in the dominant eras of Alan Border and then Mark Taylor and then Steve Waugh and then Ricky Ponting. Hopefully the team gets back to that sort of level again. And no doubt they will under Justin Langer and Tim Payne until he retires, until the next captain takes over and continues on the great work. Well, that's the end of the innings, the close of play for this episode of the podcast. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell to get the latest episodes of the podcast. And like and share our Facebook page. Until next time, keep safe and bye for now.